Can you imagine if this team becomes unstoppable in the second half of the season? This is the kind of news that gets you pumped up, with your heart racing. Two key players for the Bears are getting some good news about their injuries and could come back stronger than ever. Now, one star player is on the brink of blowing up for not getting those sacks he desperately needs. The pressure is at its peak, and the stats don't lie. Is this the moment when he finally unleashes that storm on the field? And last but not least, the future of the Bears depends on how they shut down the Vikings QB, who, after a hot start, is now being plagued by constant mistakes. Will the Bears seize this opportunity to dominate the game? If you're passionate about seeing how these key matchups unfold, you can't miss this video. Stick with us, because what's coming is pure gold. Hit that subscribe button and get ready for an epic showdown. Let's start with Tevin Jenkins, our left guard. This guy has been a key piece of the offensive line, and man, we've definitely missed him. But here's the good news, folks, he's back. After missing the Packers game due to an ankle injury, Jenkins was a full participant in Thursday's practice. And while I won't take anything away from Jake Curran, who held his own, there's no denying that having a starter back on the field makes all the difference. Tevin Jenkins, despite his injury issues, is still one of the best at his position according to Pro Football Focus. That's not something you see every day. Now, who wouldn't be excited to see Jenkins back at full strength? Now, let's talk about another name making headlines, DeAndre Swift. This running back has been a ray of hope for our offense. Although, of course, those nagging groin issues are always a concern, and we all know how tricky those injuries can be. But, from what we know, Swift participated in Thursday's practice, though with some limitations. And here's the good part, if there are no setbacks on Friday and he's good to go, we could see him in action against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Vikings haven't allowed many 100-yard rushers this season, but don't you think having Swift at 100% could be just what we need to break that streak? Just imagine, how would the game change if we have Swift in his prime? Aside from these two, there are more updates, but not as good. Kieran Amagaji and Ryan Bates didn't participate in practice, both dealing with injuries. And Elijah Hicks, who's covering for Jaquan Brisker, also missed practice. But the key takeaway here is, if Swift and Jenkins can get past their limitations, we'll be much better prepared to face the Vikings this Sunday. So now I ask you all, do you think these returns will be enough to turn our season around? If Swift gets to 100% and Jenkins returns to the offensive line as the dominant player he is, do we have what it takes to beat the Vikings? Montez Sweat, the leader of the defensive line, has just put on the table what many of us already know. 3 or 4 straight losses, and what's changed? Why do we keep losing in situations where the talent is clearly there? I'll tell you this, when your highest paid player, Montez Sweat, is frustrated and pissed off, it means things are not working. And if you don't believe me, let's dive into it. Who else is frustrated on this team? It's not just Sweat. Jervin Dexter has 4 sacks and seems to be stuck there. And don't even get me started on Sweat, who only has 3.5 sacks. What's going on here? How can it be that the best defensive unit isn't putting up the numbers we expected? I think there's more to this than meets the eye. Sack stats don't tell the whole story, but somehow they say a lot. Let's talk about something that's crucial, the lack of wins. That's the heart of the problem. It's not just about individual player stats, it's about winning games. And so far, we've had more losses than wins, with some of those losses being gut-wrenching, like the blocked field goal and that dreaded Hail Mary. How many more times are we going to see the defense fail to capitalize on a win? Enough with the excuses. We can't keep blaming external factors. The lack of sacks isn't just a personal issue. It's a team issue. Montez Sweat knows what it means to be a pass rusher, but he also knows this goes beyond his own stats. He's been criticized for not getting enough sacks, but let's not forget that the opposing offense isn't giving him a break. We hear a lot about the chips and slides he gets from backs and tight ends. Is that an excuse or the reality of what he's facing? I'll ask you this, is that really the best way to stop Sweat? I don't think so. Defenses need to adjust. And that's exactly what Sweat is saying. They need to find a solution, and fast. Here's another point we can't ignore, the lack of a clear defensive plan. Isn't it a mistake not to have more pressure plays, more coordinated blitzes? Defensive coordinator Eric Washington knows this, he admits it. The defense's production relies on this 4-man rush, and so far, we haven't seen the explosiveness we were expecting. And even more so, when you're facing a quarterback like Sam Darnold from the Vikings, who's mobile but has been sacked 28 times. Isn't this a golden opportunity for Sweat and the crew to break through that barrier? The question is, can they finally break through and get those sacks in bursts like we've seen in previous seasons? Sweat has the answer, and he told us it's something that happens week by week. Sacks come in bursts. We need to find a solution as a team. But the frustration is real. And not just from Sweat, but from all the defenders who see that, despite their effort, the wins aren't coming. Enough with the excuses. It's time for this team to step up and take advantage of the opportunities they're being given. Is this the week the Bears defense finally wakes up and starts playing like the champions we can be? Because, honestly, we're all expecting a lot more than what they've given us. And yes, we're talking about Jalen Johnson and his take on Sam Darnold, the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, let me ask you, is Darnold really the same guy we've seen before? Has he found his rhythm, or is he doomed to be the inconsistent quarterback we all know? Did you hear what Jalen Johnson said? He didn't hold back, he started strong, but he's had a lot of turnovers lately. And I gotta say, Jalen is spot on. Darnold started the season like a new man, with a couple of solid games under his belt. But now, as the weeks go on, the numbers don't lie. The inconsistency is clear as day, and honestly, how can the Vikings trust a quarterback who can't maintain any sort of consistency? Remember Darnold's first few games? He was on fire. The Vikings were sitting at 8-2, shocking the whole league. But what Johnson's pointing out is that those first few weeks are old news. Over his last 6 games, things have gone downhill fast for Darnold. The stats don't lie. His QB rating went from a solid 118.9 to a concerning drop of 89.3. And if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. His interceptions have gone through the roof, from just 3 in the early games to 7 over the last 6. That's a steep decline, and if you don't believe me, just ask any football analyst. Now, the million-dollar question is, can the Bears take advantage of this inconsistency? Our pass defense has been one of the best in the league. We're talking about one of the elite pass defenses out there, allowing only 1,974 yards and just 7 touchdowns. That's elite. And this is where Jalen Johnson comes in. He's been a key part of that defense. The guy's been a beast in coverage, and I wouldn't be surprised if Darnold has another rough game under the pressure of our ferocious defense. Sure, the Vikings have surprised some strong defenses, but can they really handle the heat in Chicago? Is Darnold the quarterback who can lead them to victory against a defense as strong as ours? I'll tell you this, with the way our defense is playing, Darnold's got a lot of problems ahead of him. Now, I want to hear from you, Bears fans. Are you ready to see Jalen Johnson and our defense wreck Darnold's day this Sunday? Will this be the game that shifts the momentum for our season, or just another week of the same? I ask you, isn't this the moment for the Bears to take control of their destiny? This game is huge! So, if you ask me, I think we've got everything we need to win this one. The Bears' defense is on fire, and with Darnold's inconsistency, I have a feeling this is going to be a game to remember. It's time to put Minnesota back in their place. What do you think, fans? Do you really think Darnold can turn his luck around against us? Chicago Bears fans, the moment of truth is here. After a tough stretch, the returns of key players give us some hope. But now I ask you, do you think these returns will be enough to turn our season around? If Swift gets back to 100% and Jenkins returns to the offensive line as the dominant player he is, do we have what it takes to beat the Vikings? We need that push to keep moving forward, and I'm sure you all have plenty to say about it. Drop your thoughts in the comments and join the conversation. Plus, we all know how crucial our defense is to our success, and the big question is, will they finally break through and start racking up those sacks in bunches like we've seen in past seasons? Last year showed us what we can do when our team is firing on all cylinders, but we need that explosiveness back. What do you think, fans? How do you think our defense will react in the upcoming games? Don't stay silent. Share your opinion. Finally, the big question on everyone's mind. Do you really think Darnold can turn his luck around against us? It's been a hot topic, and the Bears need to take advantage of any weakness. This is the time to defend our house with everything we've got. Are you ready to see our defense shine and crush any attempt from their offense? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Being part of this community means being part of one big family. Together, We're stronger. Subscribe to keep getting the best news and analysis on the Chicago Bears. We're waiting for you with open arms. And remember, always forward, Chicago Bears.